Using current polling averages from every single state, this video will show the 2024 electoral map. Out of all the videos, this will be the most thorough one. Every single state where statistics exist will be examined to show you guys what polling is revealing about the race to 270 electoral votes. Starting on the West Coast with Washington, Kamala Harris leads by 13.8%. On our map, it will probably be blue, even if Joe Biden prevailed in the state by a strong 19-point margin 4 years ago. Then, in Oregon, Harris leads by barely 5 points in the sole poll taken between her and Trump. On our map, the state will show as lean for the Democrats. She then leads by 24.5% in California, her native state. On this plan, the Golden State will be the first solid state. It will thus support the vice president. Nevada comes next. This is one of the 7 swing states, and Kamala Harris now has a quite small 1.1% advantage. Given how the polls have overstated Democrats in this state's past, it seems improbable she will actually be victorious. Right now, this outlier Bloomberg poll with her leading by 7 propels her higher. I ultimately hope Trump will triumph over Nevada, but based purely on the numbers, our map will show it as leaning blue, a state that no Republican has captured since 2004. Then Trump leads by 1.7% in adjacent Arizona in the polling. Just have a look at this series of surveys. Almost everyone has the former president ahead. He really lost this condition in the past election. Joe Biden turned Arizona 0.3% in the opposite direction, but against Kamala Harris this time, Donald Trump is poised to bring the state back. Arizona is going to be lean red and the first state on the map supporting Trump. Turning now to Colorado and New Mexico, 2 places where Biden prevailed by double-digit percentages in the previous election. Harris leads Colorado by 11 points. This is a Democrat-funded survey. Hence, you can reasonably expect her to perform considerably worse, but Colorado is going to be probably blue based only on the current numbers. Then in New Mexico, the vice president commands 8.5% points. This race is beginning to tighten though, as you can see. Her score on the most recent poll is merely 6. For now though, given on averages, New Mexico is also probably for Harris. Trump was much undervalued in Texas against Joe Biden. He was expected to just win the state by 1%. At last, he emerged with over 6 points ahead, leading by 5.2% today versus Kamala Harris, the former president. When all the ballots are counted, I totally expect him to win the state by roughly 10 points. For now, though, the state will show on the map as lean red. For the GOP, this will award Trump 40 electoral votes, a large reward. Now for the states in the middle of the nation. Indeed, we will also examine the polling even out here. Once more, Utah's most thorough video available is this one. Trump leads with an amazing 32 points. It will be just plain red. The former president is ahead by 17.5% while in Montana. Republicans are on target to flip the Senate seat, enabling them to reclaim control of the upper body of Congress. We have a really fierce Senate contest. Then Trump leads North Dakota by 27. We have 2 surveys sponsored by Democrats in Nebraska, where we are staying. On average, they displayed Trump ahead by a 16.5% point margin. Of course, the former president will ultimately win Nebraska by a far greater margin. Harris is ahead by 10% in the 2nd district, but this is a somewhat liberal area of Nebraska. Essentially, it's Omaha and some of its suburbs. Trump is then up by 16 points in Oklahoma, but clearly, he will ultimately win the state by a far more significant margin. And concerning the other states, they will all be solid red. Trump will readily accept Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, the rest of Nebraska, and Kansas. Turning now toward Alaska, we have 3 surveys here. They are most certainly underestimating Trump. For now, though, they report he averages an 8-point lead. Thus, blue will probably be the last frontier state's color. Although Hawaii does not have any data there, Kamala Harris will most likely find it to be solid. The concentration of competing states then rises as one moves up to the Midwest. Critical for both campaigns are Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But first, starting in Minnesota, where Kamala Harris leads by 4.7%. We will clear these other states from the path. Just 3 allow the most sensible risk forward. Even with Harris running alongside Tim Walz, the governor of the state, this condition is getting more and more competitive. Contextually, Joe Biden won Minnesota by 7 in 2020 and lacked a real governor on the ticket alongside him. Minnesota will thus be lean blue for now. Leading by 5.7% down in Iowa, Trump is like in both 2016 and 2020. I believe these surveys understate Trump once more, but for now, the state will be lean red based just on the current statistics. Harris leads by 16%, while in Illinois it will be pure blue. Then Trump leads by a strong margin this time, 17 points, in adjacent Indiana. For the previous president, it will thus be safe red. Proceeding on with the map, we have Ohio, a state Trump won by 8 points in both of the past 2 elections. He leads by that amount today, but keep in mind that the polls understated him greatly in both 2016 and 2020. Actually, 4 years ago, Joe Biden was on target to win the state totally. Ohio will thus be probably red based on polling, but I completely do expect Trump will win the Buckeye state by at least a double-digit margin. Now, it's time for the 3 states that decided the last 2 elections: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The 3 known as the Big 3. Trump turned these 3 blue to red in 2016. He was able to beat Hillary Clinton since he was the first Republican to win them in 30 years. And then Wisconsin got Joe Biden over 270 electoral votes when he prevailed in 2020. We will thus begin in Wisconsin, a state Joe Biden won quite narrowly in 2020 by just 0.6% lower than Trump's margin in 2016. The contenders' race is really close today. According to polls, Kamala Harris leads by 0.8%. Still, once more, consider how much polling exaggerated Democrats in the past 2 elections. Clinton was projected to prevail by 5 points in 2016, and she barely prevailed in the state at all. Then, in 2020, Joe Biden prevailed by 1/10 of the 6-point margin he was leading in the polls. I shall hence take this Harris plus 0.8% with a great grain of salt. Based on simply the pure figures, I do expect Trump will ultimately triumph in the state. Second tilt blue state on the map will be Wisconsin. We will add a third with Michigan, where the polls are even more tight. Kamala Harris drives at 0.7%. You can see here at the top, this most liberal of all the 7 battleground states. These 7 states will prove to be most crucial. Kamala Harris won't be winning any of the other toss-ups if she loses Michigan, and for now, polls indicate that her margin is really poor. Look at where Clinton and Biden were in 2016 and 2020. Hillary Clinton was winning the polls by more than 5 points, yet she didn't even win Michigan. Therefore, when all the votes are counted, I too predict Michigan to go to Trump. Yet based on current data, our map will show it as leaning blue, same like in Wisconsin and Nevada. The major one then comes from Pennsylvania. Most likely, the Keystone State will call this election decided upon. It will be the state where Harris or Trump earns either 270 electoral votes. This explains the great emphasis on it. By far the biggest of all the swing states, it has 19 electoral votes. Trump obtained it in 2016 with a 0.7% mark. Biden scored 1.2% in 2020. Thus, it has a tie, which is really encouraging for the Trump campaign. Actually, in most of the September surveys carried out, they lead. Furthermore, when we once more examine where Biden and Clinton were 4 and 8 years ago, Trump is performing far better than he has ever done. Looking at the RCP electoral map also reveals that Trump has a quite narrow lead. Simply said, the rounding mistake displays this race as a tie on our map, though Pennsylvania is clearly going to be cold red. Furthermore, since Trump is usually undervalued in the polls, Harris will find it quite challenging to win as he leads in the state. Turning now to the Northeast, Harris and the Democrats will most likely rule most of these states. Nonetheless, she is clearly performing far worse than Joe Biden from 2020. New York is the most prime illustration of this in a state Biden carried by 23% 4 years past. Harris leads by just 13.5%. She is also performing poorly in New Jersey, which is another probably blue state Biden was strong for. In the sole statewide poll, Harris leads by just 12%. Then, in Delaware, the vice president averages an 18.5% dash point lead ahead. Joe Biden grew up in this state. It will be really blue, substantial. The vice president leads by almost 30 while living in Maryland. Still, another strong blue state, the District of Columbia. Though we do not have polls from it, clearly it will vote blue. Then up in New England, Harris leads Vermont with 41. Massachusetts will also be solid in blue color. one of the most liberal states in the nation, Harris surpasses the average by 29.5%. She is up by 16, just over the 15-point mark in Connecticut. She then leads by 15.7% once more, exactly over that 15-point cutoff in Rhode Island. Biden carried these all states well over 15 points. Though they will be more competitive, Maine and New Hampshire polls from the University of New Hampshire, however, seem to distort the average. They are anomalies all the time. They constantly overstate Democrats. However, Harris leads by 7.4% in the grandest state, just above the 7-point threshold for a state to be likely according to the statistics. She then proceeds up in Maine, ahead by 11.7%. Once more, we have UNH surveys in Maine's 1st district. Harris is 28% ahead, and in the 2nd, Trump leads by just 1. Once more, drawing on this UNH survey. Thus, Maine's overall state is probably going to be blue. The 2nd district slants red. The 1st district is completely blue. Traveling down to the south, where Trump will rule Missouri, the former president leads by 10 points. Our state is probably crimson. Arkansas is going to be solid. He lags by 15. Trump leads by astonishing 26 points, while in Tennessee, one more solid red state. He lags West Virginia by 27. Next, the former president leads by 10 points in South Carolina. We thus most definitely live in a red state. Although we do not have any information from Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, all of these states will most likely vote for Donald Trump once more. Virginia will be next trip. This is one of the most competitive states in the nation, maybe perhaps just as close as Wisconsin and Michigan. Virginia's orientation is turning right. In 2021, they named a Republican attorney general, lieutenant governor, and governor. Harris leads by 4.8% currently, half of Biden's 10-point margin of victory from 2020. The state will thus be lean blue, although it is clearly going to be closer than such. With the election just 1 month away, we will monitor closely the Commonwealth of Virginia. Trump rules North Carolina at 0.6%. Still, the distribution alone makes it quite improbable he will lose. From among the latest 13 polls, Harris leads in just 2. She cannot enter this state of winning. In both of the last 2 elections, 2016 and 2020, North Carolina has gone to Trump. Just one swing state that voted for him in both 2016 and 2020. He most definitely will win it once more. Furthermore, North Carolina will be slant red, depending on the polling, though he leads by a somewhat wider margin, 1.5%. Georgia is also going to tilt in favor of Trump. Actually, Harris leads in only one of the 13 or so polls that have been conducted here. Though Joe Biden barely carried it in 2020, this is not a state Hillary will be likely to win. It was the closest state of the whole election. In 2016, Trump prevailed in Georgia by 5 points. He will restore the state. Generally conservative, the Peach State is expected to be won by Trump by a tilt margin similar to North Carolina's. The evidence supports this. And last, in Florida, this previous swing state that Republicans are currently totally controlling, this polls show Trump leading by 6%. This state is not about to be close. He can almost double-digit the margin to win. Ron DeSantis won by approximately 20 points here to win re-election in 2022. Like Texas, the Sunshine State is going to lean red, but ultimately both of these states, along with Iowa, will go to Trump by probably margins of 7 points or more. And so, with the map filled in, the polls indicate Trump is on track to earn 281 electoral votes. At 257, Kamala Harris, Trump absolutely can win more. Though this is a somewhat significant matter, he is most likely going to also win Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin. The polls indicate for the first time that the former president is on track to win an election he was meant to lose in 2020, with just 219 electoral votes acquired in 2016 and 319, with 275 for Hillary Clinton, who was expected to prevail. Though this time, the polls contradict Kamala Harris. They have never shown that Trump is on target to win.